All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the absolute foundational engine of microeconomics, the law of supply. If you ever want to understand why producers make the decisions they do, or say why store shelves are suddenly empty, or why a trendy new gadget just floods the market, you absolutely have to master this one specific law.
So we're going to break this down into 3 parts today. 1, the core law and its assumptions. 2, analyzing the supply schedule. And 3, constructing the supply curve.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the core law and assumptions.
Now, the formal statement of this law is honestly surprisingly intuitive. It says, other things remaining the same, the quantity produced and offered for sale rises with a rise in price and falls with a fall in price. Basically, producers are going to offer a lot more of a commodity when that price tag goes up and way less when it drops. It's all driven by that core profit incentive.
But here is the absolute crucial point. You see those first few words? That is our magic phrase, ceteris paribus. It's Latin for other things remaining the same. And without this concept, the entire law just completely falls apart. You have to imagine this perfect little vacuum where the price of the good is literally the only thing changing in a producer's world.
So for this whole price-quantity relationship to actually hold true, we've got to set up some really strict boundaries. All those messy external variables, they have to be frozen in place. We're talking constant input costs, so raw materials cost the exact same, unchanged technology, no sudden upgrades or breakdowns, transport costs, static tax policies, and even the weather, no change. Like if a massive drought hits or taxes suddenly skyrocket, boom, our nice, predictable law gets totally disrupted.
Moving right along to Section 2, analyzing the supply schedule.
So what does this economic law actually look like on paper? If we perfectly freeze all those external factors we just talked about, how exactly does a producer's output react to a changing price tag in the real world? Let's take a look.
Okay, check out these numbers. You can so clearly track the producer's behavior here. Look at the price of good X on the left, climbing from 10 up to 15, 20, 25, and then 30 rupees. Now look at what happens right next to it. The weekly quantity they're actually willing to supply expands directly alongside that price, growing from a pretty modest 500 kilograms all the way up to 3,500 kilograms. And we've just mapped these specific rows to points A, B, C, D, and E so we can graph them out.
Which brings us to our final step, Section 3, constructing the supply curve.
To build this out visually, it's basically just mapping our data step by step. We set the vertical y-axis for the price of good X, and we set the horizontal x-axis for the quantity supplied. Then, it's just a matter of plotting our 5 data points, A through E, exactly as they showed up in our schedule, and finally, tracing that SS supply curve.
And wow, doesn't this just brilliantly illustrate the whole concept? As we connect those points, A, B, C, D, and E, we reveal this distinct upward-sloping SS supply curve. You can see point A sitting way down there at 10 rupees and 500 kilos, and then point E just soaring up to the top right at 30 rupees and 3,500 kilos. That positive slope right there? That is your direct visual proof of the law of supply. As the price climbs, the quantity supplied expands right alongside it. And why is that? Well, because as the price goes up, the producer's profit margin gets bigger, which obviously gives them a massive incentive to produce more. Plus, as they crank up production, their marginal costs usually go up too, which means they actually need that higher market price just to justify covering those extra production costs.
So you can now fully state and explain the law of supply, and you can see exactly why it forms that precise upward curve when conditions are totally perfect. But I'm going to leave you with a quick question to ponder. What do you think happens to this perfect, beautifully mapped line when ceteris paribus is broken? Like, what if a sudden drought wipes out a crop or a massive tax hike just shatters those frozen boundaries? Well, the rules of the game change entirely, and that curve doesn't just sit there, it shifts. But hey, that's an explainer for another day.